the guy that on the line with us right now, we had a friend of the show. We had him on last week. I introduced him as the 14-time World Series of Poker champion. Well, guess what? Let me reintroduce him now as the 15-time World Series of Poker champ, Phil Hellmuth. Phil, thanks so much for coming on. Congratulations, my friend.
I can get used to that 15 times.
Well, you know, we had you on last week, and you said you were going to play in a couple more events, and you seemed pretty confident. And I said, go get number 15, my man. And now here we are a week later. Boom. How does it feel?
Pretty crazy. You know, I mean, you don't really necessarily, I mean, you know, I felt like I had a really good feeling about the summer, but then when I didn't do anything, I mean, it just turned out, it was kind of one of my worst summers heading in to the main event. And then, you know, to actually be able to win a bracelet was just sweet.
Yeah, it must have been.
My first final table, and I got it done.
That's crazy. I promise you I won't play any professional poker players that you know saying that you're overrated. I would think Daniel probably wouldn't say that now. But going back to that, the last hand of the tournament, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that because you're obviously playing heads up against a very, very good player. It was a battle, as you said. And you decide to put it in with threes. Can you explain to me that hand against ace-9? Because in normal situations, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, if somebody did that to you and called off all their chips with threes, you might get frustrated by that. Explain to me why you made that decision with threes in that spot.
Well, I mean, if you bet one penny and somebody calls one penny with threes, it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you bet $50 million and someone calls for threes, it doesn't make sense. So, you know, you can't talk about a poker hand without having context.
Right.
So, I mean, he had 10 big blinds, and, you know, and so when someone moves in with 10 big blinds, you just have to call with a pair. That's the one adjustment that I think the math guys are right about. You just have to get in there with a pair.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and so when he moved in, I picked up threes and I called. You know?
How nice is it to flop a set for a bracelet?
Well, the great thing was, yeah, I mean, well, so it's ace-9 versus threes. If my hand holds up, I'm going to win my 15th bracelet. If it doesn't, he's going to have, well, about an even stack, maybe a small. He's going to have a small chip lead, actually. And, you know, it's a key pot. And you know, my wife had flown in for 12 hours. I mean, God bless her.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
that's a good wife.
She's a doctor at a huge university, and somehow flies in for 12 hours, leaves at 6 a.m. to go right back into meetings.
Wow.
And amazing. So I'm over there with her, and she's hiding from the cameras, of course.
She always does that.
Yeah. And so, you know, we're looking, and the door card, you know, when they flop, you always see one. The door card was a 9.
Yeah. And you're thinking, oh, no.
And so I was just like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, but then he spread it. There was a 3. And I'm like, yes. And the deuce, and no one was too excited still because earlier this summer, you know, I called off with like 5s, and the guy had king queen, and it came 10-5-4.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I mean, he just left. It was over. But then they turned a jack and an ace.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
That's awful.
He was shocked too. I mean, whatever. I mean, it was an even money, but the way it came down, so you just can't celebrate. You have to stay focused.
Yep.
And I know that if, you know, a deuce comes or a 9 comes or an ace comes, he's live, or a 4 or 5. But any card other than that, I just win.
Yeah, well,
so
nobody more deserving than you. And I mean that sincerely.
They turned the 6 diamonds, and then I knew I'd won.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, wow. And it was just very surreal, especially when you just don't do anything all summer and then you just bink a bracelet. It's just so surreal. And I asked my wife, is this really happening?
Isn't it crazy that you can play in 25 tournaments or 20 tournaments and you could, you know, perform badly and play badly in all those tournaments? And I'm not saying you did that, but I'm saying, isn't it crazy that you can do that and then that last tournament you win a bracelet? That's all you need to do to have a successful WSOP, right?
Yeah, and I was kind of leaning towards not playing that event, you know. And I called my wife and said, "God, it's just been it's been such a rough summer poker wise. I mean, I remember catching only 1 or 2 rushes all summer.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
You're supposed to catch a lot of rushes, and
right.
That's just poker. I mean, so I felt like I was battling some luck, but some great financial things happened to me that that were worth a lot more than. That were life-changing money already happened in May. And so I tried not to complain and say, oh, my God, you just had this amazing hit. So let's just not complain too much. Keep your head up. It's hard to keep your head up that summer, and
Right.
and I didn't want to complain too much because I got lucky. One of the companies I'm involved with went public, and so you have to, it just didn't feel right to complain to the universe too much
Right.
about I'm lucky in a poker tournament, and so I just tried to keep my head up every day, and and then boom, there it was, and it's happened to me before once where I finished third after not having a good summer.
Right.
And you just keep having to show up and play and see what happens.
Phil, JD here. You're talking about life-changing events. Are you referring to Descent.bet?
No, Decent.bet is pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing stuff, and we're just at the beginning of the path there. So that could end up being some real life-changing money as well. That's a real fabulous one. But no, I wasn't talking about that. But
Okay.
Decent.bet has its own coin, DBet, and I was compensated 2 million coins, but I also bought 1 million coins with my own money. So you have to always reveal. The SEC wants people to talk about. You can't really promote a coin without saying exactly what happened. So,
Right.
but I bought I bought 1 million coins for $100,000 of my own money when it was at 10 cents.
Wow.
And it went to 40 cents, which was great. And then I think it's back around somewhere between 8 and 16 cents again.
Wow. That's a pretty good investment. So I want to switch topics a little bit here. You did a great job on ESPN yesterday into the morning hours covering the final table. Before we get to the actual last hand, this is a big issue on Twitter and on social media today, and no better person to ask than you. You talk about staying focused. After Tony Miles lost yesterday, he made the comment that he wasn't playing his best poker because they didn't give him enough breaks and he wasn't able to focus, blah, blah, blah. Now, my opinion, Phil, is that your opponent is going through the same thing you're going through, and if you can't focus for 10 hours or 12 hours straight for a week straight, then guess what? Maybe you shouldn't play in the World Series of Poker main event because this is for professionals and this is for all the money. And, maybe he played that last hand poorly. That happens. But I felt like that was kind of a cop-out excuse for playing a hand poorly. What do you think about this whole thing that Miles brought up? And a lot of these other professionals are kind of taking his back on this. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I mean, it is what it is. You know what you're getting into, and so you just have to find a way. You have to push through it all, and you just have to continue to fight. And so, this is the best event in the world in poker by far. And one of the reasons is, we're live on ESPN day after day after day, and the ESPN audience wanted to finish, and it was just designed that way, and so we had to do it. Now, an argument could be made that maybe you play till 2 in the morning and you come back the next day on ESPN. And if somebody suggested that, I would support that. But, and Tony Miles, it was impressive in a lot of ways, But, he has $54,000 in career earnings. So he hasn't, done a lot in tournaments. But, he impressed me with his aggression. And he looked tired, and so did Sin, and so they really had to battle with fatigue, and that's part of winning the main event.
And you've done that, but certainly this is a different situation now as opposed to when you won the main event. But you've won some huge tournaments, 15 WSOP bracelets. But what would you say to somebody that's playing in some of these tournaments and doesn't have a ton of experience, and you need to focus for 12 hours straight? What's the best advice you would give somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it is 10 hours a day. And they do give you, an hour and a half dinner break and some breaks in between. But still, that's intense. And, the best thing that I could say is, I don't know. I'm kind of extreme. I will run to my car. If I feel like I'm hanging the wall, I'll run to the car and take a nap. So in the 15-minute break, if I were in his shoes, I would have been running to my car, taking a nap. And
have you done that?
A minute.
Wait, hold on. So you're telling me that you're playing in the main event, and you're telling me you've done this before. Well, you will run to your car, take a 10-minute nap, and then run back to the table? You've done that?
Many times. Even more so on day 3, even on a day 3 or a day 2, when the 15-minute break comes along, I'll leave 5 minutes early. I'll go to my car, and I'll nap for half an hour, and I'll come back 10 minutes late, so I actually get to sleep 25 minutes. Who cares if I ante off for 15 minutes? That cost me X amount of chips. But that freshness is worth 20 times X amount of trips. So yeah, I mean, you have to do them. You have to weigh what's the value of being fresh.
Right.
And so, and for me, I would have been struggling with major fatigue then too.
Right. That's fair. A couple more quick questions. We're speaking with, very generous with his time, the poker brat, Phil Hellmuth, who just won number 15. Congratulations to that. Okay, you mentioned ante-off. I always wanted to ask you this question because you always show up late on day one of the main event. And I know part of it is, you show up in these different outfits, and it's this big thing on ESPN, and I think it's hilarious, and it's great for poker. But on the other side of things, I've heard that there's a reason why you show up to the main event on day one 4, 5, 6 hours late, and it is because you do not, and tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm misquoting you, but you don't want to get involved in a huge pot when the antes are low or the blinds are low. Is there any truth to that?
Well, it's like this. It's not really like that. I mean, I feel like almost every pro wants to show up on time because there's so many bad amateurs that give their chips away. And so in the past, it made sense to show up late because those bad amateurs could take you out. But now you're so deep that probably I should be showing up on time. But you have to understand, the World Series of Poker main event is the end of the summer. I'm always really tired. And I always want to just make sure that I get that final nap and I come in at like 5 right after the dinner break.
Mm-hmm.
And then I only have to play 4 hours. So I'm comfortable playing 4 hours. I'm super well rested. And, of course, you end up with the next day off as well. So it's all kind of, for me, it's all about rest.
I understand that. Now, we got LeBron James in town, Phil. I know you're a big NBA fan. Who are you going to be hanging out with here the next couple of days? I know you had mentioned, aren't you supposed to be hanging out with the Kardashians next week? Didn't you say that?
You will. That's a rumor that I can't confirm or deny.
Okay.
That I can't confirm or deny. I will say that LeBron James is a poker player, and he was playing in a game in the Bay Area with. I don't want to talk about with who, but
can you give us a hint?
Unfortunately, I wasn't invited that night to the game, and I'm always invited. However, I almost went over there. Oh, I'm dropping names now. I almost went over there with Elon Musk. And Elon's not a poker player. I was hanging out with him that night, which is a huge privilege. And we almost went over to the game to say hi to LeBron, but it was an hour drive. So
it was in California. Can you confirm that?
Midnight.
It was a California home game. That's fair. That's fine. So how does this work, though? I mean, back in the day, right? You played games with A-Rod when he was playing for the Yankees. How does this work? Somebody just calls you, or you reach out to them, or their agent reaches out to you and says, "Hey, my guy A-Rod wants to learn how to play poker. Can you hang out with him and teach him how to play?" Or how does this stuff work with you?
Sometimes they work by agents. Like Eva Longoria, her agent reached out to my agent and said, "Hey, when she was married to Tony Parker, Tony's a huge fan, and I want to fly you in for his birthday. And what would you charge and whatever?" And Eva was super generous and ended up giving me floor seats for a playoff game.
Wow.
In Dallas. I sat on the floor when the Spurs played the Mavericks, and then the next day flew to San Antonio, not with their team, but I flew to San Antonio, and then we did Tony's birthday, with like kind of a poker tournament for his birthday, and it was great. And, a lot of times it's weird. I'll just be out at a restaurant or a club, and, a rapper will come up to me, or, word kind of spreads who's in the restaurant, especially, South by Southwest or wherever you are at these really nice restaurants. And then, people, stars come up to me all the time, and they're fans, and it's really kind of mind-blowing, because, you're like, oh, my God, Vince Vaughn, you're a fan of mine, or, whatever, whoever they are. And there's, and so it's sort of mind-blowing, and you have to be careful not to get too cocky, and right now I'm in a very I was humbled last week.
You sound humble today.
So I'm in more of a humble mood, even though I won 15. Now, I don't know. Usually my ego starts to spike a little bit.
Well, speaking of...
I win a bracelet.
That's okay, though. I think you deserve it. Speaking of ego, Phil Ivey said he's going to win 30. Now, you've set the number. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your goal was 24. You've been saying that for years, right, Phil? Do you think Phil Ivey has any chance to surpass you?
Of course. Great player. I mean, he's in the one drop today. There's only, 30 players?
Right.
I mean, if he wins that, that's bracelet number, 11 for him?
Right. So he's catching up.
So, I mean, Ivy's just a great, great, great player. He's won 2 bracelets in 1 year before. I think maybe even 3 in 1 year. And so he's phenomenal. And so to catch me, heck yeah. So I just got to keep posting numbers,
Well, I have no doubt you will, Phil. Hey, man, you've been very generous with your time with us. I know I'll let you go, get some rest, but I know you can't confirm it, but can I just say, hush, hush, good luck with our Kardashians. Say hello to Khloe and Kendall Jenner and all them for me, and please take all their money. They have a lot of it, but I would rather you have their money than they keep it, if that makes sense. So please take their money.
Thanks a lot. Yeah,
Thanks.
I think it's a fun week, and last night doing the commentary, I didn't think I'd be doing it for 6 hours.
Yeah, that was a long time.
Blast.
Yeah, that was a long time.
It's the first time I've ever gotten, universal praise. Usually I have more haters about how I do commentary than lovers.
You know what you remind me of? Can I just say this?
I was blown away a little bit. I was like, wow, they actually liked my commentary.
No, you're great. I'll give an analogy here. You've been called the John McEnroe of poker, right? John McEnroe, and your career obviously still going in poker, but I think John McEnroe is a fantastic analyst. I'm sure you would agree. And I feel the same way about you with poker. I think you're great at analyzing the hands and getting into people's heads, the psychology of the game. I mean,
thank you. I appreciate that. I think McEnroe is one of the best commentators. And, I think Johnny Miller is a great commentator, another great champion in their sports. But a lot of times the all-time greats in sports aren't the best commentators. So, that makes you wonder, how good am I? So I know I'm at least pretty good. I think that we have some really good commentators in the game.
Sure, no doubt.
I enjoyed it, and for me, last night I tried something new. I was like Tony Romo, where he just starts. It's going to be a run to the left. It's going to be a run to the right. It's going to be an RPO. It's going to be, and I started saying, all right, he's going to bet $30 million. He's going to call, and then they bet $32 million and call. So that was fun.
Yeah.
I was just going with the flow.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It's nice. I feel, and so. Now they want me to hang around and do commentary for the $1 million buy in the next few days.
I know you'll do a great job with that.
I've already agreed to do that.
Yeah, so. I know you'll do good. I know you'll do a great job with that as well. And you seem to be success no matter what new ventures you dive into. Phil, thanks so much for the time, my man. As always, really appreciate it. Hopefully we can catch up with you again soon. And congratulations on number 15, my man.
Have a great day, you guys.
All right, thank you. There you go.
Thanks, Phil.
The poker brat.
Thanks, Phil.
The poker brat.
Thanks, Phil.
The